A lot of people are talking about this Errol Spence video here on the FightHype.com YouTube channel, saying that Errol looks overweight, looks messed up. You know, Errol Spence, as I said before, was one of my favorite fighters for a long time. I really liked his attitude towards boxing. He was a serious guy, Errol Spence, when he was coming up through the ranks. He was somebody who wasn't enamored by Floyd Mayweather's star power, because there was a time when Mayweather was such a star among certain sections of the American boxing community and worldwide as well, that there was even fighters in Mayweather's division who talked about him like they were fans. I don't respect that. How can you be in the same division as a guy and you're a contender, like, you know, for his title or whatever, or maybe you're a champion? How can you be talking about him like you're a fan of his? That's crazy. Unless it's mind games, of course, like Andy Ruiz when he fought AJ. But generally speaking, you know, nah. I remember Lamont Peterson and I think even Devin Alexander. There was other welterweights and they were just gushing about how great Mayweather was and how much they learned from him. He's supposed to be your rival. You're supposed to be coming for his head. You're supposed to be coming for his neck. You ain't supposed to be out here fanboying for the guy. The worst one, obviously, was Adrian Broner. Although Broner was at lighter weights for the most part when he was fanboying for Mayweather, it was cringeworthy, the stuff Broner was doing. But one guy who wasn't doing that was Errol Spence. Errol Spence, as we all know, the famous sparring story where he went into the Mayweather gym and he got in there with Floyd and they try and rattle you in the Mayweather gym when you get in there with Floyd. Everybody's like, ooh, and all this kind of business. When you get in there with Floyd, they try and rattle you. And apparently Errol Spence was just laughing. And when they had the spar, Spence gave as good as he got, if not better. That is what they say. And it caused tension between Spence and Mayweather because Spence tried to take this guy's head off in that spar and did well. And Mayweather's ego didn't like that. So apparently it caused tension between them. This is what they say. But eventually Mayweather then tried to come in, take Spence under his wing and use him as his attack dog. He tried to put Spence in between himself and Keith Thurman because Keith Thurman was always calling Mayweather out. Mayweather was like, no, fight Errol Spence. You know them ones? So during that time, I respected Errol Spence a massive amount. I was really a big admirer of his ability. I liked his attitude. I compared him to like a welterweight version of Marvin Hagler. Not just his boxing style, although Hagler was a switch hitter, but his mentality, that blue-collar Marvin Hagler type mentality. And even his style to some degree was similar to Hagler because Hagler wasn't a guy who had, you know, tremendous one-punch knockout power. He didn't have blistering hand speed. He had good power, Hagler, don't get it twisted. He was, you know, a good puncher and he had decent speed, but there was nothing about Hagler physically that jumped out at you in terms of his, you know, athletic ability or anything like that. No. Same with Errol Spence. Errol Spence, again, got decent power, pretty good power, decent hand speed, but there's nothing that jumps out at you about Errol Spence. I mean, if you look at Keith Thurman, at least Keith Thurman in his prime, his hand speed's a lot quicker than Spence's hand speed. And there have been punches at welterweight hit a hell of a lot harder than Errol Spence. But Spence just had tremendous physical fitness, tremendous mental strength, extremely focused, good chin, good all-round boxing skills, good body attack, great balance, could fight inside, could fight outside, very determined, an unflappable kind of guy, Spence. That's what the one thing I liked about him is he's not a real emotional guy. See, if you've got an emotional guy, they can be a bit erratic in terms of their performances. Yeah, because it depends on where their emotional state is at mentally. So if you've got an emotional guy, you never quite know. And an emotional guy is easier for the opponent to manipulate. You can get under his skin, wind him up, you know, all that kind of business. And that can affect his performance. But Spence was just ice cold. You know, like Marvin Hagler, just ice cold no emotion, nothing. And I always liked that about him. But unfortunately, Errol Spence has become yet another victim of the PBC cult. And when I say victim, he's a grown man at the end of the day, and he should have enough sense to know what he's doing and know what he's getting himself into. But evidently he doesn't. He found the culture within the PBC cult to be intoxicating. They tell you what you want to hear inside the PBC cult. They fill your head with a whole heap of rubbish. They make you paranoid of the outside world. Literally, it's what I'm describing. It's what they do in PBC, you know. It's literally like a cult in there. It's scary. I mean, Al Heyman is borderline an actual cult leader at this stage. The way he is shadowy and he manipulates the fighters and pumps their head full of all kinds of nonsense, and they don't trust outsiders and all this kind of business. It's like a cult. Errol Spence has fallen foul of that. And one of the problems with PBC is how there seems to be no, how can I put this? There seems to be no emphasis on discipline within PBC as a culture, all right? There seems to be no emphasis on discipline. And boxing is a sport where you need discipline. It seems to be a cult where everybody's egos just get gassed up and they're given a certain amount of, freedom, and certain types of behavior are not really discouraged. We saw that with Andy Ruiz when he lost to AJ in the rematch. Everybody's gassing him up and he's going here, he's doing this, he's doing the other. And look, your promoter or your manager, they can't force you to do anything. But if you have a particular type of culture, if you have certain things that are common among a circle of associates, that then becomes the norm to everybody who enters that circle. You understand? So if people join PBC as a fighter, someone joins PBC as a fighter, and they see that everybody's going out, they're partying, they're drinking, they're going to strip clubs, they're driving Ferraris at whatever, 150 mile an hour down the freeway when they're drunk. When they see that from all their comrades within the same promotional organization, human beings are social creatures. They start gradually gravitating towards that direction, or at least some of them do. You can see it. I mean, you look at the attitude of the Charlos, you look at the attitude of Errol Spence, Adrian Broner, Gervonta Davis. You see what I'm saying here? Deontay Wilder. Now, Wilder, as far as partying and all those kind of things, I don't know whether he gets involved in that, but in terms of the idiotic, over-the-top, absurd, egotistical mindset and behavior of Deontay Wilder and this complete detachment from reality, yes, Wilder is typical PBC. But when it comes to Errol Spence, I mean, he's going down the Adrian Broner, Gervonta Davis road, which is real sad because Errol Spence is not from the streets. He's not a guy like Davis or Broner who maybe have a criminal background before they came to boxing. Errol Spence doesn't. Yeah, Errol Spence was a good boy, but he's getting sucked in. He's getting hypnotized. He's getting, what's the word I'm looking for? Drawn in, seduced. That's the word I'm looking for. He's being seduced by that ratchet world star culture, which is so prevalent within that PBC organization. And Al Heyman allows this ratchet world star culture to just fester and multiply and just envelop everything inside of PBC. A ratchet world star culture is no good. It's anti-intellectual. That's why so many of these PBC fanboys believe absolute mad nonsense. Because that is the culture that Al Heyman is allowed to germinate within PBC. And he obviously wants that. He wants to try and capture that demographic in terms of the audience. That's what Al Heyman is going for. And the reason that's the demographic he's going for is because that's the demographic he knows best. Because Al Heyman was in the music business before he came to boxing. He was managing R&B acts and all that kind of stuff, rappers and R&B artists. That's the kind of people he was managing putting on big shows and stuff like that. Yeah, for decades, Al Heyman was doing that. So he understands that crowd. I'm sure Al Heyman isn't somebody that listens to that type of music. Al Heyman is a highly educated man from Harvard and very successful businessman, but he understands that crowd because he's worked with that crowd for decades. And I think what we're seeing with PBC is Al Heyman going back to his roots of dealing with that crowd. He knows what they like. He knows how to sell things to them, at least up to a certain degree. Now, it hasn't been fantastically successful in boxing in terms of trying to sell them these particular fighters because he hasn't built any stars yet. Wilder is probably the closest thing he's built to a star. No, let me take that back. He has built Wilder into somewhat of a star, although Wilder wasn't originally with Al Heyman. Al Heyman's done the bulk of the heavy lifting in terms of getting Wilder to where he's at now. Obviously, he could have made Wilder a much bigger star if he put him in there against Anthony Joshua, and he had plenty of opportunity to if he put him in there against Klitschko. But I guess Al Heyman didn't have the confidence to put Wilder in with those guys. So anyway, Wilder was the epitome of what Al Heyman is trying to create with his PBC fighters, which is an ignorant individual, foolish, impulsive, who appeals to the world star generation, not just in the United States, but worldwide. It's so sad. It's so disappointing. That's the most important word to me, the one I want to put the most emphasis on. It's so disappointing to me that Errol Spence has gone down that road, coming out of all kind of nonsense, posting rubbish on his social media, and he's just, oh no, he's been seduced by that ratchet, anti-intellectual, world star PBC culture. And it will be the ruining, it will be the death of his career. It'll be the death of his career. This guy nearly lost his life because he was drink driving, hanging around in clubs and all this kind of nonsense. The guy's nearly 30 years old. You look like the old guy in the club now, Errol. You know what I mean? Like the old guy in the club. Damn near 30 years old. The club's full of young people, man. People in their early 20s, late teens. Here we have Errol, damn near 30 years old, looking like a sad story. All bloated in the face. Hair looking like a flipping toilet brush. Get it together, Errol. I say that as somebody who really admires your ability. Not as a hater. Not as somebody who doesn't think you're any good. As somebody who really admires your ability. I mean, just look at the difference between Terence Crawford, his attitude, and Errol Spence. You don't see Terence Crawford blowing up 40 pounds, 50 pounds, looking all bloated in the face. Drink driving everywhere. Like, you don't see Terence Crawford doing that. Terence Crawford still has the discipline. He still has the hunger. He still has the professionalism. And it's tough. It's more tough for Terence Crawford, actually, because he's been frozen out. You know, when you're frozen out, it's easy to lose the hunger. But he's still keeping it. God knows when Errol Spence get back in the ring. Obviously, there's the current situation in the world at the moment where boxing has been put on freeze, it's been put on pause. So that's going to put, because they were talking about Errol Spence coming back in the summer. I mean, the way he looks here, can any of you guys see him coming back in the summer? Even if they do resume boxing, let's say a month or two from now, can you see Errol Spence coming back in the summer and fighting a serious fight? Because he said he wants to come back and fight a serious fight. He don't want to come back and, you know, have a tune-up or anything like that. I mean, maybe that's just hype talk from Errol. But if it's real, I'll be betting on the other guy if they're going to put him in a serious fight. Look at the state of him here. Errol Spence is a guy who used to stay in shape between fights before he became champion. Now he's always out of shape in between fights. What's that all about? You know, Errol Spence made fun of Kell Brook for being out of shape in between fights. And now he's doing it. In fact, he's doing it worse than Kell Brook was doing it. Errol Spence had the right attitude for a while, but clearly as a human being in general, he's not very bright. He's certainly not a country bumpkin like Deontay Wilder. Is he from Houston or Dallas? I think he's from Houston, isn't he? Is he from Houston or Dallas? He's from one of them cities in Texas, the big cities. So he's not a country bumpkin like Wilder, but clearly not that bright. You know what I mean? Clearly not that bright, unfortunately, because he wouldn't have let his career go in the direction that it is going if he had any decent level of intellect. You know, somebody like Terence Crawford is clearly a smarter man. Yeah, so I say this with disappointment in my heart that Errol Spence is ruining his career right now. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's Hatman, I'm out. Hatman merch is now available. We got t-shirts, vests, hoodies, and more. Just click the link below. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.